Welcome to today's explainer. Look, if you're feeling a certain invisible weight right now, a kind of subtle, constant hum of digital exhaustion, you are absolutely not alone. We are living in a technological epoch that's advancing at this unprecedented, exponential rate. The devices in the palms of our hands, they just aren't background tools anymore. They are the immediate foreground of our most intimate experiences. Today, we're going to explore a groundbreaking analysis that argues our technology is carrying an invisible psychological weight, and more importantly, what we absolutely must do to reclaim our human values in the digital age.
Okay, let's dive right into our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The myth of neutrality, 2. Hidden values in everyday tech, 3. The evolution of design, 4. 5 truths about technology, and 5. Enter axiological design. So, starting with section 1, the myth of neutrality. Let's unmask technological orthodoxy. See, there's this massive gap between what we want to believe about our tech and what's actually happening. There's this classic modernist idea called technological orthodoxy. It's basically the belief that our tools are firmly under our control and entirely neutral, that a tool's harm or benefit depends solely on the person using it. But the reality, it's completely different. Technologies actually encode practices and values directly into our societies. We all know about environmental externalities, right? Like smog from a factory. But the source material introduces a really critical concept here: psychosocial externalities. These are the silent secondary effects of technology that quietly rewrite our culture, our behavior, and really, our very identities.
That brings us to section 2, hidden values in everyday tech, these psychosocial externalities. I want you to take a second and just really think about your own life. Think about how the smartphone has changed your memory, your attention span, or even just the dynamic at your family dinner table. The way we relate to time, space, and each other has been fundamentally transformed. Now ask yourself, was all of this intended by the inventors when they created these devices? The stark reality, as our source material points out, is captured brilliantly in this quote. It was not. Only a small number of these impacts were desired, and the vast majority were not even considered. So we are, in so many ways, literally living in the accidental fallout of rapid, unchecked innovation. Think about your own sense of direction before you had a smartphone. The intended purpose of GPS was simply efficient point-to-point navigation, and it does that brilliantly. But there's an unintended value here. It actively weakened our innate human sense of direction. It created a dependency just to feel safe walking around a new city. It subtly devalued our human spatial memory. And it did all of that completely by accident.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact same concept, but with a much older piece of technology, the bathroom scale. The intention was great, right? Give people an objective, affordable way to measure their weight at home. But what was the unintended consequence? By placing an objective numerical measurement tool in the absolute most private space of our homes, it enabled a profound ease of self-objectification. It fundamentally shifted our cultural values regarding health, hyper-focusing society on weight rather than more holistic metrics of well-being.
Let's actually take a massive historical leap to show just how deep this really goes. Even an ancient tool like the plow had monumental psychosocial externalities. The intended purpose? Ease of labor and creating a food surplus. But the unintended value? Well, the source argues that normalizing animal-drawn plowing altered humanity's relationship with the natural world, literally moving religious beliefs from animistic to theocentric. It justified this narrative that humanity's role is to dominate nature, laying the deep psychological groundwork that eventually birthed the Industrial Revolution. Technologies don't just change what we do, they change who we are.
Moving on to section 3, the evolution of design, how we got here.
So let's transition from the effects of individual objects to the macro level, mapping how our entire design philosophy has evolved alongside these tools. The first thing to understand is that isolated tools simply do not exist. Looking at the civilizational tech stack, human-scale tools become complex technologies. Those technologies then form ecologies, which build massive infrastructures, ultimately defining entire technological epochs. Let's really zero in on that middle layer, because it's vital. Ecologies of technologies are sets of technologies that are symbiotically related and co-evolving. You cannot have a light bulb without a power plant and power lines, just like you can't have a smartphone without server farms, global microchip supply chains, and satellites in orbit. They evolve together as an entire habitat. So, how has our approach to creating this habitat changed? Well, in the early modern era, we used naively optimistic design, just assuming all tech progress was inherently good. In the 19th century, we saw heavy backlash with Luddite design, where people literally tried to smash the machines because they assumed tech was inherently bad. But throughout the 20th century, we settled into what the text calls nihilistic design. This is the current, dominant, and dangerous era where we ignore values entirely, falsely claiming tech is just neutral. And that brings us to the urgent necessity of the 21st century, axiological design.
Section 4. 5 Truths About Technology. The Propositions Toward Axiological Design.
To survive our current technological epoch, we simply must accept these hard-won insights from design science. Here they are. The 5 undeniable laws of how humans and machines interact. Number 1, technology transforms values. 2, it never emerges alone, it evolves into ecologies. 3, it forms a literal, habit-forming habitat around us. 4, it fundamentally changes power dynamics. And 5, it shapes our minds and our metaphors. Let's look closer at a few of these because they're absolutely crucial.
So, the crucial point is, Proposition 1, technology transforms values, and often in completely unexpected ways. The tragic irony of our era perfectly illustrates this. Social media was explicitly built with the intention to connect us, right? Yet the reality, backed by mountains of research, is that heavy users report significantly higher feelings of isolation and disconnection. The technology altered our values in the exact opposite direction of its intended goal.
Now, let's look at Proposition 4 regarding power dynamics. The source material points out that the exact same digital technology alters power dynamics differently based entirely on the system implementing it. For example, in America, the internet and digital infrastructure are centralized through private big tech, resulting in massive corporate profit and fragmented centralization. In China, those exact same technologies are centralized through the state apparatus, resulting in high social coordination and deep political control. The technology forces a concentration of power no matter what. The only variable is who holds it.
And looking at Proposition 5, we see how dominant technologies literally rewrite our own psychology. Back in the early 20th century, psychologists like Freud used the dominant tech of the time, the steam engine, as a metaphor to explain the human mind, talking about repressed pressure and blowing off steam. Today, in the 21st century, we use computer metaphors. We talk about processing info, our bandwidth, and being wired a certain way. Technology shapes the very metaphors we use to understand reality itself. Finally, Section 5. Enter axiological design, reclaiming the future.
If we want to save humanity from what the authors call an accidental planetary computational stack, we need a critical paradigm shift. And that shift is axiological design. Axiology is just the philosophical study of value. So axiological design is the application of principled judgment about value directly to the design of technology. It demands that we recognize technology is intrinsically value-laden from the very start and value-creating once it is released. It means ethics must be the primary driver of innovation, not just an afterthought or some cleanup job left to the engineering team. Let's move to and see how this builds our future, because this presents a profound fork in the road for our civilization. On one hand, if we continue with our current habit of nihilistic design, we face a pretty dark path. Severe VR addiction, the destruction of shared knowledge through ubiquitous deepfakes, and massive technological unemployment creating a whole new underclass. But on the other hand, if we embrace an axiological future, we intentionally design for human flourishing. VR becomes a tool for immersive empathy learning. AI provides beautifully customized knowledge, and robotic automation actually liberates human labor from drudgery.
So, what is the actual path forward here? Well, technologists must push back against the relativistic move fast and break things mentality. We must prioritize ethics and human values over raw engineering metrics or short-term profits. We must stop looking at single tools and start designing for entire ecologies of technology. And honestly, most importantly, we must constrain design by fundamental human limits. We absolutely have to design for human sanity, human dignity, and human justice.
We have built incredible new capacities, but we are facing a bottleneck of existential consequence. It's time to realize that every tool we make makes us in return. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to take away from today's explainer. Will we finally step up to design our technology with clear, human-centered intention? Or will we continue to let it blindly design us? Thank you so much for joining me today.